All right, this is the Book of Esther. We are in chapter 8 tonight. So it's good to those of you that are on that could make it. We're going to do a quick review of chapter 7 that we went over last week. We started out with the Queen's second banquet. As you remember, there was the first one that when she went before the king, and then her request, it was to come to another banquet. Amen. And we dealt with the king and Haman that came to the queen's banquet. Remember, she asked the king if he and Haman could come to the banquet that was going to prepare on the following day. The banquet was again filled with wine. King asked her what was her petition. She said, I grant unto you up to half of the kingdom. And the queen's reply was, if I found favor with the king and it's pleased him, let my life and the lives of my people be spared. This is the first instance where we see where she is starting to let the king know her heritage. Remember, Mordecai had told her, don't tell anybody who your family is, what your heritage is, who you are. Being a Jew, don't tell anyone. But now your back's up against the wall. There's an edict that's gone forward that says all Jews are to be killed. So she's going before the king, as Mordecai had told her he wanted her to do. So now she's spelling it, let my life and the lives of my people be spared. She says, my people and I have been sold to be destroyed, to be killed, and to be annihilated. And if we had just been sold as male and female slaves, I wouldn't have, I'd have held my tongue. It wouldn't have been that big of a deal. And I'm saying that because the Jews had been used to becoming bought and sold into slavery before. They had done that with Pharaoh. They had done that with the Babylonian captivity. So just being made a slave was not as detrimental as this edict that went forward for them all to be destroyed, killed, and annihilated. And she says, for that would be too trivial of a matter to warrant even disturbing you. But I'm telling you now, this is something that's really, really, you need to pay attention to. So the king got angry. So King Ahasuerus' response. First thing he asked was, who is he? Where is he? Who would dare presume in his heart to do such a thing? So Queen Esther says, she names the culprit. The adversarial enemy is this wicked Haman. Again, that's why she had asked for the king for him to come and to bring Haman. So she rats him out. Haman was terrified before the king and queen. Somebody else. Haman pleads for his life. The king rises in his wrath from the banquet. Meaning he was so upset. He was so mad. He was just, I could see him just furious that this man who he had elevated to a position of authority right up under him over all the other princes and all the other magistrates and all the other parts of the kingdom, that this is a man who had me sign a decree to not only kill all the Jews, but Mordecai, the person who saved my life, and my queen, he was outdone. So he had to leave the banquet for a moment. So while he went into the palace garden, Haman stayed behind. And he started to plead for his life. Because he knew that the king had intended to kill him. So he's now pleading with the queen. Don't let this happen. But the king's anger is displayed. Because when he returns to the place of the banquet, Haman is fallen across the couch where Esther was reclining. So he's not only just pleading, he's almost draped across her. He's on the same place where she said, "This is the queen." And he is just, he's outdone. So what does the king do? He says, "Will you also assault the queen while I am in the house? Are you crazy? You've just totally lost your mind." When the word left the king's mouth, the attendants came and covered Haman's face. In essence, you're a dead man. That was a signal of his doom. So the king executes Haman. And the king is informed by Harbona, one of the king's eunuchs. He says, "See the gallows that Haman had built, 50 cubits high, in his own courtyard? He planned to hang Mordecai on it. This is the man that saved your life. But this man has such a hatred for Mordecai, he done built this gallows 75 feet high, 7 stories, where everybody in the whole kingdom can see, and he planned on hanging Mordecai on it. Very man that saved you from an assassination. So what's the king say? We'll hang him on it." So they hanged Haman on the gallows. That was prepared for Mordecai, and the king's anger subsided. I'm cool now. I done got rid of the man who wants to kill the man that saved my life and kill my queen. Nah, he got to go. So are there any questions on what we went over in chapter 7? I got her. Okay. So let's go on now to chapter 8. Mordecai receives a promotion. This is Esther, the 8th chapter, verses 1 and 2. It says, "On that day, King Ahasuerus gave Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told how he was related to her." So she's telling it now. This is Mordecai. This is the man that saved your life, but he's also my father. So it's like, oh, wow. Not only did you save my life, you're the dad of the queen. So the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and he gave it to Mordecai. Esther appointed Mordecai over the house of Haman. So the very man that was going to kill all the Jews, especially Mordecai, Esther gets the house, Mordecai gets the signet ring, Esther gives Mordecai the house of Haman. Now, this is something I thought about too. Talk about things being ironic. Where was the gallows? Anybody?
Outside of Haman's house.
Outside of Haman's house. So now you got Mordecai, got the house with Haman hanging on the gallows. 75 feet high. Talk about ironic. So here's Esther and Mordecai's blessing that we're dealing with in the New Living Translation. On that same day, King Xerxes gave the property of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, to Queen Esther. Then Mordecai was brought before the king. Esther had told the king how they were related. The king took off the signet ring, which he had taken back from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. Esther appointed Mordecai to be in charge of Haman's property. Not just the house, but anything. Think about the servants, all he owned, everything that was a part of Haman's life now was in Mordecai's charge. Mordecai could do whatever he wanted to with it. So isn't that wild that he gave the house to Esther? Now, Mordecai is now elevated. Not only had he been dressed in the king's garments, on the king's horse, paraded around the whole realm, proclaiming this is what the king wants to do to the man who he wants to honor. Mm-hmm. Now, he's elevated.
Yes.
He now has the signet ring. Remember, anytime the signet ring was used to proclaim something, that is how it was done. It's law. So now Mordecai has it. He gave it to Mordecai. And Esther now having charge of all the property, what she do? Mordecai, is yours. Do with it what you will. But we still have to deal with this edict that had been written in the king's name to destroy all the Jews everywhere in the Persian Empire on the 13th day of the 12th month. And basically, that's what the rest of the book covers. So let's go through it. Any questions on verses 1 and 2? All right. Esther's petition before the king again. This is Esther chapter 8, verses 3 through 6. Now Esther spoke again to the king, fell down at his feet, and implored him with tears to counteract the evil of Haman the Agagite and the scheme which he had devised against the Jews. And the king held out the golden scepter towards Esther. So Esther arose and stood before the king and said, if it pleases the king, and if I have found favor in his sight, and the thing seems right to the king, and I am pleased in his eyes, let it be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, which he wrote to annihilate the Jews who are in all the king's provinces. For how can I endure to see the evil that will come to my people, or how can I endure to see the destruction of my country? So she's asking the king to actually do something that he cannot do. She's got tears in her eyes. She knows she's found favor, but I love how she doesn't take it for granted that her place as the queen is set, that she can do what she wants. Not like Vashti did. She just plain out disobeyed the king's order. She took it for granted that she's the queen and she could do what she wanted to do. Esther did not do that. Esther, every time she came before the king, 4 things. If it pleases the king, if I found favor in his sight, the thing seems right in his eyes, and I am pleasing in his sight. She's showing herself in such a humble state that what she's wanting, she's really hoping can be done, without really realizing that once this edict had been written, it cannot be revoked. So let's go. Esther's second audience with the king. She went in again before the king, falling down at his feet, begging him with tears to stop the evil plot devised by Haman the Agagite against the Jews. Again, the king held out the golden scepter to Esther, and she rose and stood before him. See, again, remember, you can't just go before the king. But she did. He held out the scepter because he She is now she's the queen. He chose her. He's got great favor with her. Every time he asks, what do you want? He says, I'll give it to you even up to half of my kingdom. I'm giving you what you want. Here. What can I do for you? So let's go on to verse 5 and 6. Esther said, if it pleases the king, I found favor in him. He thinks it's right. If I please him, let a decree be reversed. The order of Haman, the son of Hammedatha, the Agagite, who ordered that Jews throughout all the king's province should be destroyed. For how can I endure to see my people and my family slaughtered and destroyed? If it pleases the king. Have I found favor? I believe I have, but I'm not going to take it for granted. If things seems right to you, you're the king. Revoke those letters, please. He wrote them to annihilate all the Jews. Actually, he was more mad at Mordecai, but he just said, I'm just going to take it out on the whole nation. She says, so how can I'm your queen. How can I be in this position and endure as a queen to see the evil that will come upon my people? Not only that, I'm a Jew. So that means I'm your queen, but I am just as much in the targets as all the rest of my people. I can't see the destruction of my countrymen. Something has to be done. Any questions? About 3 to 6. Okay. So this is the king's response to Queen Esther. This is chapter 8, verses 7 through 10. Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and Mordecai the Jew, indeed, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he tried to lay his hands on the Jews. You yourself write a decree concerning the Jews. He's now telling them what to do. Because I can't just reverse this, but this is the plan. You yourself write a decree concerning the Jews, as you please. In the king's name, seal it with the king's signet ring, meaning it's going to become law. For whatever is written in the king's name and sealed with the king's signet ring, no one can revoke. So the king's scribes were called at that time in the 3rd month, which is the month of Sivan, on the 23rd day, and it was written according to all that Mordecai commanded to the Jews, the satraps, the governors, the princes of the provinces from India to Ethiopia, 127 provinces in all, to every province in its own script, to every people in their own language, to the Jews in their own script and language. And he wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed it with the king's signet ring, and sent letters by couriers on horseback, riding on royal horses, bred from swift steeds. This has to go out right now. I'm the king, and I cannot revoke anything, because you already know anything that's written and that I wrote and it's sealed with the king's signet ring, it can't be revoked. But now that I've given you, Mordecai, the ring, now I have given you all of Haman's position and things, why don't you write a new decree? You write it, I'll sign it. Use that signet ring I gave it to you. Put it in my name. So everybody everywhere will know exactly what is to be done. It's not a revision. We can't revoke this. This day has already been set. It's already been out there. Jews are going to get killed. But I want you to think about this and put out something that is what you want to do. The king talks to Esther and Mordecai. Yep. Given Esther the property of Haman, he was impaled on a pole because he tried to destroy the Jews. The king's solution in his own decree. Now go ahead and send a message to the Jews in the king's name, telling them whatever you want. Seal it with the king's signet ring. But remember that whatever has already been written in the king's name and sealed with his signet ring can never be revoked. So you write a new decree concerning those Jews. So Mordecai is given the charge. So on June the 25th, the king's secretaries were summoned, and a decree was written exactly as Mordecai dictated. It was sent to the Jews, to the highest officers, the governors, the nobles of all 127 provinces stretching from India to Ethiopia. Hey, we've been studying this. Has anybody ever looked at a map to see how large that area is? If you haven't, go online, pull up a map of the Middle East, and take a look and see how large. I should have done that, and I'll probably end up doing that by next week to show you how large an area that this king has province over. The decree was written in the scripts and languages of all the people of the empire, including that of the Jews. So there would be no misunderstanding. It was written in the king's name, sealed with the king's signet ring. So Mordecai, he sent his dispatches by swift messengers. You guys get this word out so that everybody knows what we're about to do. June the 25th, the decree was written. According to all that Mordecai commanded, the Jews, satraps, governors, princes, provinces from India to Ethiopia. 127 provinces in all. Every province in its own script, every people in their own language, to the Jews in their own script and language. Wrote in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed with the king's signet ring. Sent letters by couriers on horseback. Any questions? Okay. So here is the royal decree written by Mordecai. Esther 8, verses 11 through 14. By these letters, the king permitted the Jews who were in every city to gather together and protect their lives, to destroy, kill, and annihilate all the forces of any people or province that would assault them, both little children and women, and to plunder their possessions. On one day, in all the provinces of King Ahasuerus, on the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar. A copy of the document was to be issued as a decree in every province and published for all the people so that the Jews would be ready on that day to avenge themselves on their enemies. The couriers rode on royal horses. They went out, hastened, and pressed on by the king's command, and the decree was issued in Shushan, the citadel. So this is now the new decree. I can't sent out a decree that says, nah, you guys can't kill him. But we can put out a decree. This is the new one. Defend yourself. King's decree gave the Jews in every city authority to unite, to defend their lives. They were allowed to kill, slaughter, and annihilate anyone of any nationality or province who might attack them or their children and wives, and take the property of their enemies. So I'm now giving you permission. Anybody that comes at you, kill them. Don't run away. Don't sob, oh, woe is me. If they coming at you to harm you, harm your wife, harm your children, take your stuff, kill them. It's now a decree. Gather yourselves together. Get whatever you need, but protect your lives. Kill, slaughter. Isn't that what was the same edict that was put out against the Jews? Kill, slaughter, and annihilate. So now the king's saying, well, now you Jews, y'all do the same thing. Any person or province that would assault them, little children and women, because they was going to kill every single thing, including the children and the women. Plunder their possessions, kill them. What really gets me, the date was chosen, the day chosen for this event throughout all the province of King Xerxes was March 7 of the next year. On one day, 13th day, 12th month, month of Adar, March 7th the next year. Does that sound familiar to anyone? That's the same date that was for the Jews to be killed. Same day, all in one day, same month, same year. So the decree sent out, a copy of this decree was to be issued as law in every province and proclaimed to all peoples so that the Jews would be ready to take revenge on their enemies on the appointed day. So urged on by the king's command, the messengers rode out swiftly on fast horses, bred for the king's service. The same decree was also proclaimed in the fortress of Susa. So this is what was sent out everywhere. You need to be aware of this. And this is what really got me is all these provinces, you now have two different decrees.
Yeah.
You got one decree that allows you to kill the Jews. You now got another decree allowing the Jews to kill you. Which you going to do? The Jews will be ready to avenge themselves on their enemies on the appointed day. The messengers rode out swiftly on fast horses. The decree was issued in Shushan the citadel. The king allows Mordecai to write another edict stating that the Jews can defend themselves and destroy anyone who hates them. Any questions? You guys are just getting it. That's cool. This is part that I love the most. The Jews' response to the king's decree. Esther 8:15 through 17. This is the last verse. So Mordecai went out from the presence of the king in royal apparel in blue and white. He's now decked out. with a great crown of gold and a garment of fine linen and purple, and the city of Shushan rejoiced and was glad. At one time, he's in sackcloth and ashes at the gate, wailing and moaning.
Yeah.
Next thing you know, he's paraded around the street on a horse, led by his mortal enemy, who's proclaiming this is what the king will do for those that he wants to honor. Mordecai goes back to the gate. I'm sure he probably puts back on his sackcloth and ashes. He goes back to the gate, but the next time they all see him, he's now decked out in royal apparel. Got a crown of gold, garment of fine linen and purple, and the city rejoices and was glad. The Jews had light and gladness, joy and honor. Remember at one time they were all just, oh, loves me. They're crying. They had to fast for 3 days. They're all in an uproar because we're going to get killed. But now here's a whole new edict that comes and lets you know you can not only defend yourself, kill anybody that tries to harm you. In every province and city, wherever the king's demand and decree came, the Jews had joy and gladness, a feast and a holiday. But check this part out. This part really gets me. Then many of the people of the land became Jews. Because of the Jews fell upon them. They're like, wait a minute. Oh, no. This is what happens. First, y'all, we was going to kill y'all. Now we know y'all can defend yourself. We want to be on your side. We see how blessings come on your side.
Amen. Amen.
So we want to be like you. Because they were scared to death, knowing that the Jews
can fight
and kill. The joy of the Jews. Then Mordecai left the king's presence, wearing the royal robe of blue and white, the great crown of gold, and an outer coat of fine linen and purple. And the people of Susa celebrated the new decree. We are free to save ourselves. This man is now decked out. And they left with apparel because Haman had worn the same thing. But now you got Mordecai, a Jew, wearing the same apparel. So they know he's been elevated to a position of authority. They know he's now the king's right-hand man. And they also know he's a Jew. Boy, what a turnaround. What say about Michelle said, what a difference a day makes. And it was a day. Because one day she has this celebration, she has this banquet. She says, tomorrow come. Haman goes home. Mordecai doesn't stand. Haman's all messed up and mad. Tells his wife and his friends, they tell him, go ahead and build a gallows that's hanging on him. And tomorrow when you go ahead and get hanging and then go on to the banquet the next day. So here comes Haman, wanting to be able to tell the king that he wants Haman killed. He wants Mordecai killed. But the king now makes Haman take care of Mordecai. Dress him up, take him around. Mordecai is just, he's done. While he's home telling him all about, oh, this is what kind of shame I am, what I had to do. Here it's time for the banquet. So everything goes downhill from there. And before the day is over with, he's dead.
Pastor, can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Maybe I got it wrong. Was Mordecai Esther's uncle? I thought her parents got killed.
Yes, he was her uncle, but it's like he adopted her.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I read that right.
Some say cousin, some say uncle.
Yeah, I just want to make sure I had that right.
But him taking her in, he became her father.
Okay.
So that's, it's like, okay, it's like Michelle and I. We have stepchildren, but they're not stepchildren, they're our children.
I understand. I know.
And that's exactly how this was. She was no longer just his cousin.
Yeah.
She became his daughter, which made him her father.
Mm-hmm.
But if you follow it all, she was actually his cousin.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
I read my notes, uncle. Yep. That's why I was asking.
Okay, so you got the Jews' celebration. They're filled with joy and gladness, honoring every province. Everybody's now, and we're now declaring a public festival. We're declaring a holiday. But it says that many of the people of the land became Jews themselves, for they feared what the Jews might do to them. Yeah. Scared.
It kind of reminds me of back in the book of Exodus, when the Pharaoh was holding the Jews, the Hebrews, and then he said that whatever Moses told him, whatever comes out of his mouth would happen to him.
Yeah.
And he cursed his own people. Yeah. Same as Haman cursed himself.
He cursed himself. Yes.
Yep.
Very much so. Very good. Great observation. Very good. The Jews were filled with joy and gladness. They were honored everywhere, in every province and city. Great celebration. They even made a holiday out of it. Had a big feast. To this day, they still do. But many people of the land became Jews. That's the part that really tickled me. I'm like, man, why? Because they were scared of what the Jews might do to them.
What our mother said, if you can't beat them, join them.
Can't beat them, join them. Any questions? Any more comments? That is the end of chapter 8. So quick review for questions for the chapter. What are the main points of this chapter? We dealt with Mordecai receives a promotion. Esther petitions before the king again. Mm-hmm. King Ahasuerus' response to Queen Esther. Yes. The royal decree. Mm-hmm. And the Jews' response to the king's decree. These were all the main points of this chapter. Mm-hmm. What blessing was bestowed upon Esther and Mordecai? Anybody?
The house of Haman.
The house of Haman.
House and property of Haman. First, he gave it to Esther.
Esther gave it to Mordecai.
King took off his signet ring and he gave it to Mordecai. Then Esther gave Mordecai the house of Haman. What happened during Esther's second audience with the king?
Haman showed his color because he knew that he was going to die, and he messed with the queen. Is that what you're asking, Pastor?
No, this was after Haman's dead now.
Oh, okay, my bad.
But she goes before the king again. She falls at his feet.
He asks for forgiveness for the people.
To stop the plan of Haman.
Yeah.
So what was her request? Revoke the letters devised by Haman that he wrote to annihilate the Jews. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But it could not be done. The king's solution to his own decree Gather the Jews together and protect your lives. Kill, slaughter, and annihilate any people or province that would assault you. Both your little children and your women. They would come to plunder your possessions. Kill, slaughter, and annihilate. A lot of violence. What date was chosen?
March.
Yeah, you got it. The 13th day of the 12th month. The month of Adar, or March 7th of the next year, which was the same date chosen for the Jews' annihilation. So that date could not be changed. So what he's saying is, when they come to kill you, you kill them. Because this is the date that was set before. Now, I'm not giving you a different date so you can go and kill him. The same date that was given for them to come after you, you use that same date one day, because everything's supposed to be done in one day. Use that day, and you flip the script. How was Mordecai honored?
He had a gold crown and
Hey,
You had royal apparel of blue and white. He had a gold crown and a coat of fine linen and purple. And he got the ring. How did the Jews celebrate the king's decree?
banquet.
They were filled with joy and gladness, and it's time to party. Declared a feast and a holiday. And many of the people of the land, they decided, hey, look,
I want to be a Jew.
I want to be a Jew, because we're afraid of y'all. We didn't heard about what happened to Pharaoh and his army. We scared of y'all. We didn't heard about Jericho. We scared of y'all. Y'all got something going on. And we are afraid. So I think we better switch sides and get on your side. We don't want you flipping the script on us. We want to be your friend. Any questions on chapter 8? All right. Our last lesson is going to be chapters 9 and 10. I'm putting them together because 10 is very, very small. So we're going to do chapters 9 and 10 next Tuesday.